inside, now! All of you, hurry!
The limousine didn't belong on her street. Not here. Not on this cracked, narrow road where kids played football with a half-flat ball and neighbors borrowed sugar from each other just to survive the week. But there it was. A long, black, stretch limousine, glossy like wet ink, blocking the entire street as if it had come searching for someone important, someone powerful. Except the only person outside was Amara, 22, black, broke, and standing on her front porch in her faded scrubs and $12 sneakers, holding a plastic grocery bag with instant noodles and 2 eggs. The chauffeur stepped out first, tall and intimidating in a charcoal suit, scanning the houses as if looking for a name, a face, a soul. Then his eyes met hers. "Miss Amara Daniels?" he called loudly. Her stomach tightened. She hadn't done anything wrong, not that she knew of, but when a limousine calls your government name, it never means something normal. "Yes," she answered, voice barely holding steady. The chauffeur nodded once, then turned toward the tinted back window, and slowly, painfully slowly, the window rolled down. Inside sat a woman Amara recognized instantly, the stranger from the bus. The woman whose head had collapsed onto her shoulder. The woman Amara had thought was dying. The woman Amara had stayed with for 40 minutes while other passengers pretended they didn't see anything. The woman she had saved. Only now, the woman looked nothing like the faint, trembling stranger she'd helped the day before. She was polished, elegant, wrapped in luxury, and smiling at Amara as if she'd been searching for her across the whole city. "Hello, Amara," she said softly. "We need to talk." Amara's throat tightened. How does she know her name? Before she could react, her mother opened the screen door behind her. "Amara, who was this?" She froze, eyes widening at the limousine, the chauffeur, the polished woman inside. "Mama, I don't know," Amara whispered. But that wasn't true, was it? She knew exactly who the woman was. She just didn't know why she was here. The woman in the limousine opened the door herself, stepping out carefully, as though the ground belonged to her. In the daylight, she looked even more surreal. Expensive, untouchable, yet familiar in a way that made Amara's palms sweat. "Yesterday," the woman began, "you saved my life." Amara blinked. The bus, the panic, the way the woman's body had slumped over her shoulder, the cold sweat, the moment Amara had shouted for someone to call an ambulance while others rolled their eyes or turned up their headphones. I didn't do anything special," Amara said quietly. The woman smiled gently. "Oh, my dear, you did everything." The neighbors had begun peeking out through curtains and cracked doors. Someone started recording with their phone. "Mama, let's go inside," Amara begged, suddenly overwhelmed. But the woman lifted a hand. "Just a moment, please." Her voice was gentle but packed with authority, a voice used to being obeyed. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small velvet box, the kind used for jewelry worth more than Amara's entire life savings. She placed it in Amara's hand. "For you." Amara hesitated before opening it. Inside was a necklace, delicate, white gold, subtle, except for the pendant. A crest. A crest Amara instantly recognized from the news, from billboards, from magazines and hospital waiting rooms. A crest belonging to one of the wealthiest families in the entire country. This woman wasn't just rich. She was that rich. Mama, Amara whispered, voice trembling. This can't be real. Her mother made the sign of the cross 3 times. The woman stepped closer, her eyes softening. I've been looking for you since last night. The paramedics told me a young nurse trainee stayed with me the entire ride to the hospital. They said if you hadn't acted the way you did, I might not have survived. Amara swallowed hard. The bus was crowded. No one wanted to get involved. Some whispered that the woman was drunk. Others moved away annoyed. But Amara's training hadn't let her walk away, even though she was on her way to a tutoring shift, even though she needed the money, even though she knew she'd be late, even though she missed her clinical skills exam because of it. The exam she could not afford to miss. The exam she studied for months. The exam that determined whether she progressed to the next stage of her nursing program or started all over again. The exam she might now have to pay to retake. Money she did not have. Amara felt heat in her eyes. She looked away before her tears embarrassed her. The woman saw it. Amara, she said gently, you lost something because of me, didn't you? Amara's breath hitched. She didn't answer, but silence was its own confession. The woman nodded slowly, as though calculating something, decision forming behind her eyes. Then, you deserve more than a thank you, the woman said softly. She turned to the chauffeur. Bring it. Bring what? Amara's mother clutched her arm, whispering, Child, what is happening? Who is this woman? I don't know, Mama, but I think she's someone important. The chauffeur returned carrying a sleek black briefcase. He placed it in the woman's hands. The woman stepped closer. Amara, I'm here because your kindness changed the trajectory of my life. Today, I want to change the trajectory of yours. The briefcase clicked open. Amara gasped. Her mother screamed, Jesus! Inside was something Amara never imagined she would see in her entire lifetime. Stacks, neatly arranged. Money. Not a gift, not a tip, not an apology. A life-changing amount. But before Amara could fully process it, the woman's expression shifted. Her smile faded, and she whispered, Before you take this, there's something you need to know. Something dangerous. Amara froze. Dangerous? The woman leaned in, lowering her voice so only Amara could hear. The man who attacked me yesterday, he followed me on that bus. Amara's heart stopped. The woman looked directly into her eyes. And he thinks you saw him. Amara's breath caught in her throat. Before she could react, someone stepped from behind the limousine. A man. Tall. Shadowed. Watching her. Too closely.
The man behind the limousine didn't move. He simply stood there, half in sunlight, half in shadow, watching Amara with a stillness that made her chest tighten. He wore a dark cap pulled low over his forehead, concealing most of his face. But even from where she stood, Amara could feel something cold radiating off him. Something wrong. The woman, who'd been so graceful moments ago, suddenly stepped in front of Amara, shielding her with her body. Stay behind me, she whispered sharply. The chauffeur moved instantly, stepping between them and the man. His hand hovered near the inside of his jacket, where a bodyguard keeps a weapon. Mama, Amara whispered tremulously, go inside. But her mother's hands were trembling so badly she couldn't even reach the doorknob. The man took one slow step forward. Mrs. Sterling, he said in a low, gritty voice, You shouldn't have come here. Sterling. The name hit Amara like a shockwave. Sterling. The Sterlings were everywhere, on hospitals, skyscrapers, news headlines, philanthropy events. Her sister once joked, if Jesus had investors, he'd pick the Sterlings. And the stranger she'd saved on the bus was Mrs. Naomi Sterling, wife of billion-dollar tycoon Alexander Sterling. Amara felt her knees weaken. She hadn't saved just anyone. She'd saved one of the most powerful women in the country. And apparently, someone wasn't happy about it. Mrs. Sterling lifted her chin, voice becoming steel. You followed me yesterday, you tried to kill me on that bus, and now you come to my rescuer's neighborhood? Her tone dropped to ice. Leave, now. The man clicked his tongue, amused. You think a fancy car and a bodyguard changes anything? His gaze shifted, slowly, to Amara. You shouldn't have interfered, girl. Amara's breath faltered. Mrs. Sterling stepped closer to the man, fury burning in her eyes. You stay away from her. The man smirked. Then he turned, as if to walk away, but paused, looked back, and said, This isn't over. Not for either of you. Then he disappeared down the street, melting into the maze of alleys as though he'd lived here all his life. The entire neighborhood fell silent. Mrs. Sterling exhaled shakily. Get inside, she whispered urgently. Both of you. Amara grabbed her mother's hand, guiding her inside the small, dim living room. Mrs. Sterling and the bodyguard followed, closing the door behind them. Inside, the house felt even smaller with the billionaire's presence, like the walls were shrinking around Amara. Mrs. Sterling's eyes softened when she saw the modest space, the worn-out sofa, the fan that clicked whenever it spun, the framed photo of Amara and her late father. Sit, Mrs. Sterling said gently. Amara and her mother obeyed, but their bodies were stiff with fear. The billionaire woman remained standing. She seemed restless, on edge, pacing the room like she was calculating danger. I shouldn't be here, she muttered. I shouldn't have dragged you into this. You didn't, Amara whispered. I was just helping someone. Mrs. Sterling stopped pacing. Then she looked at Amara with a deep, heavy sadness. You saved my life, but by doing so, you saw something you weren't supposed to. Amara frowned. Saw what? I only saw you collapse. Mrs. Sterling hesitated. She walked to the window, peeked outside, then closed the curtain. Yesterday, she began slowly, I wasn't having a medical episode. I was poisoned. Amara's heart pounded. Her mother gasped, Blood of Jesus! Mrs. Sterling continued, her voice trembling just slightly. The man you saw was the one who did it. He boarded the bus to watch me die quietly. So no cameras, no attention, no trace. Amara felt cold creep up her spine. But you stopped him, Mrs. Sterling whispered, eyes softening again. You stayed with me. You called for help. You held my hand until the ambulance arrived. You ruined his plan. Amara swallowed. So now, he wants me dead too? Mrs. Sterling didn't answer right away. And that silence scared Amara more than any words. Where is your husband? Amara's mother asked suddenly. Can't he protect all of you? Mrs. Sterling dropped her gaze. My husband doesn't know. That sentence was a thunderstorm in the room. Why? Amara asked quietly. Mrs. Sterling hesitated again, then sank slowly into a chair, like the truth was too heavy to hold while standing. Because, she said softly, I'm not sure if the man who poisoned me was acting alone.
The implication hit Amara like a punch. "You think your husband is involved?" she whispered. Mrs. Sterling looked up, eyes raw with pain. "I don't know who to trust anymore." The room felt like it was shrinking, the air thick, Amara's palms damp. "Why come here? Why bring danger to my child?" Mrs. Sterling shook her head rapidly. "No, I came to protect her. You both need to leave this house today. Pack whatever you can carry." Amara stiffened. "Leave? Go where?" Mrs. Sterling stood up. "To a safe house. Somewhere no one can reach you." The bodyguard cleared his cough. "Ma'am, with all due respect, bringing them into the Sterling system puts them on the map. Whoever targeted you, I owe her my life," Mrs. Sterling snapped. The bodyguard went silent. Amara grabbed Amara's mother's wrist. "We are not going anywhere with strangers. We don't know you." "I understand," Mrs. Sterling replied, voice calmer now. "But that man knows where you live. He followed me yesterday, and if he thinks Amara saw his face, he will come back." Amara felt the room tilt slightly. Her mother looked at her, fear, love, and indecision swimming in her eyes. "What did you see?" her mother whispered. Amara closed her eyes. She remembered the bus, the sudden scream, Mrs. Sterling collapsing, everyone panicking. And then, yes, a man standing at the back of the bus, watching too closely. Not shocked, not scared, just waiting. Her eyes snapped open. "I saw him." Mrs. Sterling looked relieved and terrified. "Then we need to go now." Before Amara could respond, tires screeched outside. Loud, violent. Everyone froze. The bodyguard braced the door with his shoulder, weapon raised. Mrs. Sterling whispered urgently, "Amara, if anything happens, run." Before Amara could ask why, the front door exploded inward.
The explosion wasn't fire. It was force. Pure, brutal force. Wood splintered like shrapnel, flying across the living room as the door ripped off its hinges. Amara screamed as she shielded her mother with her body, dragging her backward behind a couch. The bodyguard was already firing. 3 shots. Sharp, deafening cracks that shook the little house to its bones. Mrs. Sterling grabbed Amara's wrist, pulling her low, moving her toward the kitchen. "Stay down! Don't look up!" But Amara couldn't help it. She lifted her head for a second, just enough to see them. 2 men. Black tactical clothing. Masks. Silent. Precise. Not thieves. Not street criminals. Professionals. One of them lunged toward the bodyguard, tackling him to the ground. The other moved straight from Mrs. Sterling. "Run, Amara!" Mrs. Sterling shouted, but running felt impossible. Her legs didn't obey. Her breath didn't come out. Her heart was pounding so hard it drowned out the gunshots. The masked man reached for Mrs. Sterling, grabbing her by the arm, but the bodyguard, even pinned, managed to slam the attacker's knee with the butt of his gun, forcing him to release her. Mrs. Sterling shoved Amara toward the back hallway. "Go!" This time Amara moved. She dragged her mother with her, stumbling down the hallway toward the back door. But a third man appeared, blocking their path. He stepped out of the shadows of the cramped hallway, tall, silent, like he'd been waiting for them. Amara froze. Her mother clutched her tightly. The man lifted one hand slightly. "Come with me."
His voice was too familiar, too calm, too wrong. Mrs. Sterling appeared behind them, breathless. "Don't listen to him!" The man tilted his head, mask still on, but his posture, his confidence. Amara felt chills. "Why are you doing this?" Mrs. Sterling demanded. "Why chase me? Why hurt her?" The man didn't answer her. He took a step toward Amara instead. "She shouldn't have been on that bus," he murmured. "You shouldn't have interfered." Amara swallowed hard. "You poisoned her. Why?" For the first time, the man hesitated, not in guilt, but in annoyance, like he had touched a nerve. "She asked too many questions," he said simply. "She found something she wasn't supposed to find." Mrs. Sterling's eyes widened. "You know nothing about what I found. Nothing." The man chuckled softly behind the mask. "I know enough." He raised his hand, revealing a syringe. Amara's stomach dropped. Her mother screamed, but before he could take another step, a window shattered behind him. The bodyguard exploded into the hallway, blood running down his face, his weapon raised. "Down!" Everyone ducked. The bodyguard fired. Once, twice. The masked man stumbled back, clutching his arm where the bullet hit him, but he didn't fall. He didn't scream. He just steadied himself. Then he turned his head toward the others in the living room, a silent signal. The two attackers rushed toward the hallway to regroup. "Move!" the bodyguard shouted. "Back door! Now!" Mrs. Sterling grabbed Amara. Amara grabbed her mother. They sprinted toward the kitchen. But another shot rang out. The bodyguard groaned, dropping to one knee. He'd been hit. Mrs. Sterling screamed his name, "Harris!" But he waved them off with his uninjured arm. "Go! I'll cover you." Amara didn't want to leave him. He had risked everything for them. But Mrs. Sterling yanked her through the kitchen. "This way!" They burst onto the back porch and almost collided with a dark SUV idling behind the house. Someone was waiting inside. A silhouette. A man in a suit. Amara's heart nearly stopped. The back door opened and the man stepped out. He wasn't masked. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't a stranger. He was calm. Too calm. "Naomi, you've made this much harder than it needed to be." Mrs. Sterling froze. Her lips parted, her hands trembled violently. "Alex?" Amara blinked. "Alex, as in Alexander Sterling, her husband, the billionaire, the man she was afraid to call, the man she suspected, the man she hoped wasn't involved. And he was standing right there. Not shocked, not confused, but waiting, as if he knew this moment would come, as if he orchestrated it. "Why?" Mrs. Sterling whispered. Her voice cracked into nothing. "Why would you do this to me?" Alexander took one slow step forward. "Because you've been digging where you shouldn't, accessing files you shouldn't, talking to people who don't exist on paper." Mrs. Sterling shook her head in disbelief. "You tried to kill me over business records?" "Not business," he said plainly. "Legacy." Amara felt ice spread through her veins. Her mother gripped her arm so tightly her nails dug deep. Alexander's eyes shifted to Amara, and he finally acknowledged her existence with a small, almost irritated nod. "You," he said, "were a complication I didn't anticipate." Amara's pulse pounded. She felt like the world stopped spinning. Alexander walked closer. "Yesterday was supposed to be clean, quick, no witnesses, but you got in the way." Mrs. Sterling stepped in front of Amara. "If you touch her," Alexander smirked, "you don't make demands. Not anymore." Mrs. Sterling stared at him like she didn't recognize him, and maybe she never truly had. "What did you think?" he said mockingly. "That saving a stranger made you a hero?" He shook his head. "You saved the wrong woman." Footsteps came from behind them, the masked men regrouping. The bodyguard groaned inside the house, too injured to stand. They were trapped. Alexander lifted a hand in a simple gesture. "Take them." But the second the masked men stepped forward, a deafening roar filled the sky. All heads turned upward. A helicopter, its blades slicing the air like thunder, descending rapidly. Wind blasted the backyard, tearing at clothes, snapping branches and sending dust into the air. Amara shielded her face, her hair whipping wildly. Mrs. Sterling grabbed her. Alexander cursed under his breath. The helicopter landed in the Sterlings' own backyard, heavy, urgent. The door slid open. A woman jumped out. A woman in a dark suit, badge clipped to her belt, shouting over the noise. "Federal agents! Step away from them!" Amara's heart slammed against her ribs. Multiple agents spilled out behind her, weapons raised. Alexander Sterling's face finally cracked, not with fear, but with rage. He took a step back, snarling, "Naomi, what did you do?" Mrs. Sterling straightened, voice trembling but strong. "I told someone the truth." An agent grabbed Amara, pulling her and her mother behind cover. Another agent moved toward Alexander, but he wasn't done. Not even close. He lunged toward his wife, grabbing her wrist so hard she cried out, "You think this ends here?" She stared at him through tears. "It ends today, Alex." He tightened his grip. "No, it ends when you—" A gunshot exploded through the air. Alexander froze. He looked down at his shoulder. Blood. Amar's hands shook as she gripped her mother's. The helicopter blades sliced the air, throwing dust and debris across the backyard. Naomi Sterling, pale but resolute, motioned them toward the waiting agents. "Go, now!" Naomi shouted. Amara and her mother ducked behind the agents, heartbeats sinking with the deafening roar of the chopper. Alexander Sterling struggled against the cuffs, rage contorting his face. "You think this ends here?" he snarled at Naomi. She stepped forward, voice calm but icy. "It ends today, Alex." Amara's stomach turned as the truth sunk in. Alexander hadn't just orchestrated attacks on his wife. He had underestimated the consequences. The man on the bus, the poison, the violence. It was all part of his empire of control. The agent secured Alexander, but more men approached for the shadows. The masked attackers regrouping, moving fast. Harris, wounded, raised his weapon to cover Amara and her mother. One masked figure lunged toward them, and Naomi fired, hitting him squarely. Another scrambled for cover, but the agents intercepted. Amara's pulse raced. Why am I involved? She whispered. Naomi's eyes softened. Because you disrupted his plan, you saw things you weren't supposed to see. And now, Alex believes you know more than you do. Amara swallowed, heart hammering. I don't know anything. Naomi shook her head gently. He doesn't care. He thinks you do. That's why he came here himself. And now, he will do anything to control the narrative. Suddenly, Alexander smirked behind the agents. You've made this personal, Naomi. Using her, your rescuer, was a mistake. Amara froze. Using her? She had just acted out of instinct, of human decency. Naomi stepped in front of her, protective. Amara's safety is my priority. That's why you're going to federal custody. You are the key witness, Alex. You will answer for everything. Alexander's sneer faltered as the helicopter's ramp lowered. Agents escorted Amara and her mother toward it, Naomi leading the way. But Alexander's eyes stayed locked on Amara. You have no idea what's coming next, he whispered. Amara's blood ran cold. The threat in his tone wasn't empty. Whatever came after this, she realized, would pull her even deeper into a world she never wanted, one of billionaires, poison, betrayal, and dangerous secrets. As the helicopter blades lifted them off the ground, Amara clutched her mother's hand tightly. She looked down at Alexander Sterling, being dragged away by agents, his eyes still burning with a promise she couldn't yet comprehend. The city stretched beneath them, silent witnesses to the chaos. And above it all, Amara knew one thing for certain. This story was far from over. Amara's heart thumped like a drum in her chest as the helicopter touched down on the secure federal compound. The wind whipped her hair in scrubs, her stomach twisting with every second closer to the truth. She held her mother's hand tightly, grounding herself. Naomi Sterling led them through the sliding doors, her expression unreadable, but her eyes flickered with both relief and determination. Stay close, Naomi whispered. This isn't over until everything is exposed. Inside, agents hustled them through sterile corridors. Security cameras blinked overhead, recording every step. Amara felt like she had stepped into another world, a world of power, fear, and secrets far beyond anything she had known in her small neighborhood. They reached a secure room. The door shut with a definitive click. Naomi turned to face Amara. What I'm about to tell you, you cannot repeat outside these walls. Are you ready? Amara nodded. She didn't know what she was ready for, but she knew she had no choice. Naomi exhaled sharply. Alexander poisoned me because I discovered financial embezzlement hidden in his charity accounts. Millions, maybe billions. And when he realized someone might witness his actions, he acted. He tried to silence me. And because you were there, he believes you know everything. Amara's breath caught. She remembered him on the bus, the masked men, the shots fired, the chaos. I saw him on the bus, but I didn't see anything else. I don't know any of the accounts. I didn't. Naomi shook her head gently. He doesn't know that. He believes otherwise. That's why he came after you. That's why he's dangerous. And now, he will do anything to control the narrative. Before Amara could respond, the door burst open. Federal agents dragged Alexander Sterling into the room, cuffed but defiant. His sharp gaze swept across Amara, piercing as if searching for weakness. Naomi, he spat, with venom in his words. You've made a grave mistake bringing her into this. She's just a child. She knows nothing. Amara squared her shoulders. I'm not a child. I'm a nurse. I saved a life yesterday, and I didn't ask for anything in return, except to do the right thing. Alexander's smirk twisted into fury. "Do you understand the position you're in? One wrong move and—" "Enough," Naomi interrupted. Her voice was steel now. "He's done. You're done, Alex. You underestimated me, and you underestimated her." The agents guided Alexander to a chair. They removed his cuffs from one hand and placed documents before him. "These are the financial records we've recovered," one agent said. "You can explain each of them." Alexander's eyes darted across the papers, his confidence cracking with every second. His empire, the one he believed untouchable, was collapsing in front of him. Amara felt a mix of fear and vindication. He had caused so much terror, yet here he was, powerless, exposed. "Do you see now?" Naomi said softly, turning to Amara. "Your actions, your bravery, made this possible." Amara swallowed. She hadn't anticipated such responsibility, but the weight didn't terrify her as much as she thought. In that moment, she realized courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite it. But Alexander wasn't finished. Even as the agents began recording his testimony, he raised his head, looking directly at Amara. "You think this is over?" he hissed. "You have no idea what kind of power I wield. This isn't the end. It's never the end." Amara met his gaze without flinching. "Maybe not," she said quietly, "but today it ends for you." The agents finalized the documents, sealing Alexander's fate. Naomi placed a hand on Amara's shoulder, grounding her. "Your life can return to normal now. At least, as much as possible." Amara exhaled, relief flooding her chest. For the first time in 2 days, she felt a hint of calm. Her mother hugged her tightly, whispering, "You were brave, my child. I'm so proud of you." But even as the helicopter waited to take Amara and her mother back home, she couldn't shake Alexander's final words. They lingered like a shadow. "It's never the end." And she knew, deep down, that the world she had stepped into, one of wealth, betrayal, and danger, had changed her forever. She wasn't just a nurse trainee anymore. She was someone who had stared into darkness and survived. As the helicopter lifted off, Amara looked down at the city below. It looked peaceful, unaware of the chaos that had unfolded above it. Her hands tightened around her mother's, and she whispered to herself, "Whatever comes next, I'll be ready." And somewhere far below, Alexander Sterling plotted silently. The agents didn't notice him smirking ever so slightly under his breath, hinting that his story was completely over. Amara, exhausted but alive, stared ahead at the horizon. She knew she had changed the trajectory of someone's life, Naomi's, but unknowingly, she had also changed the course of her own. The helicopter disappeared into the sunset, carrying Iran away from danger, but leaving the story suspended in a world where power, betrayal, and courage collided, and where the next chapter was already waiting. The end. For now.